Story 1. At work, we have to tape things up frequently. I work in the manual labor side of the plant. Upstairs, one of the office workers cut their hand on a tape dispenser. Because of this, they damaged all the blades on the tape dispensers. It's as frustrating as it sounds. Story 2. I worked for a railroad company where the schedule was 4 days on and 4 days off with 12-hour shifts. On the fourth day, the crews were allowed to leave 2 hours early if all work was completed while still receiving a full 12 hours of pay. However, one particular crew never got to leave early due to the conductor, who struggled to manage the job effectively. As a result, they worked the entire 12 hours every day they were on duty. The conductor mentioned to the customer we serviced that the crew never left 2 hours early. Unfortunately, this was not something the customer approved of, as it was only something our boss allowed. Consequently, no one got to leave early, all because one crew could not figure out how to perform their job efficiently. Story 3. I don't have a real answer, but this reminded me of a fun toy band because of 3 unfortunate deaths. Story 4. This is unfortunate because it is mostly sad, but it affected everyone else. A student in high school went home during our lunch break and took his own life. After that, the school did not allow any students to leave during lunch. It was a tragic situation, but it impacted lunch outings for everyone. It may seem selfish to say, but it's true. Story 5. A hitchhiking robot was built in Canada and was meant to travel the world by relying on the kindness of strangers. After 3 weeks, it reached Philadelphia, where it was destroyed beyond repair and decapitated. Its head has never been found. Story 6. Service dogs used to be highly trained animals assisting individuals with genuine disabilities. Now, some people buy fake service dog vests for their pets, and many simply bring their animals without even bothering to purchase a vest. Story 7. When I was in school, I took art. One of the school rules was that if you had an art exam, you could come in wearing whatever you wanted for that exam. Most people used it as their non-uniform day, and the school knew that, but they didn't care. The only rule was that it had to follow our uniform guidelines. Tops had to have sleeves or straps, trousers or skirts had to be below a certain length, and no offensive imagery was allowed. Everyone was respectful about it, and there were never any issues for decades. The year I was leaving school, a girl came in wearing a tube top and short shorts, which she managed to cover up at the school gates before entering to take her exam. Everyone was shocked, as they knew it was against school rules, and that exam was the calm before the storm. When the day ended, everyone went home and an email was sent out. All art students taking the exam had to come to school in their normal uniform, as they were abolishing the non-uniform rule effective immediately. A few students didn't get the memo and were stopped at the gate. Apparently, they either had to go home and change or borrow a uniform. The girl was somewhat shunned by every student in the art department and their friends because everyone knew it was her who had caused the change. The new uniform rule was nicknamed the Slutbuster Rule and the Anime Rule, named after her full name, which I won't disclose. Story 8. Dumpster diving. I found many free books, power tools, art supplies, and random items I never knew existed. However, some individuals left trash behind and did not clean up after themselves. Now the green, rectangular, steel containers are being locked, and there is police presence. I had good relations with the police when they arrived during my scavenging, but the whole adventurous vibe is now ruined by a few thoughtless individuals. Now, all those resources are relegated to the seagulls at the landfill. Story 9. Chihuahuas and Paris Hilton. I am a firm believer that her carrying chihuahuas around like an accessory influenced a whole generation to do the same, neglect training, and led breeders to create smaller, often sickly dogs with more personality issues. This perpetuates the idea that all chihuahuas are problematic. Story 10. When I was in middle school, I worked as a caddy at one of the best and most exclusive golf clubs in America. Caddies were permitted to play the course on Mondays. Early in the season, a caddy took a divot out of one of the greens after missing a short putt. When the course superintendent discovered what happened, caddy golf was canceled for the rest of the season and the following season. Needless to say, he was not a popular person in the caddy shack after that. Story 11. Live-action Danmei produced in China has seen some drama. A fangirl either stabbed or attempted to stab another fan over a disagreement regarding a fanfiction portrayal of a fictional character. In response, the Chinese government expressed disapproval, stating that since fans do not know how to behave, they would be shutting it all down. Story 12. Remembers Lib? It was supposed to be an underground resource until someone posted about it on TikTok because of Colleen Hoover's books, leading to the website being shut down. I remember using that site for textbooks that I could not afford. It helped many students like me, and now it's just gone. I know piracy is a crime, but that website was a lifeline for students who struggled to access the materials we needed for our studies. Story 13. Every warning label and specific town ordinance exists because someone thought it was a good idea. Story 14. As a website developer, ActiveX was a powerful tool. Imagine if you could click a button and it would open your Excel or any program and start displaying data or playing music. Perhaps you have reports you upload every day. What if it scanned your folder and uploaded them when you open the web page? Unfortunately, there are many bad actors who disrupt people's property, resulting in strict limitations on what websites can and cannot do. This negatively impacts our lives in subtle, imperceptible ways. There are ways around it, such as installing software on specific machines. However, you will not have a go to this URL and it will do everything for you solution right out of the box. Story 15. A grocery warehouse job used to allow employees to take any damaged goods home at the end of the day to reduce waste. However, one person began damaging items he wanted to bring home. Now, there is no more free food due to one selfish individual, resulting in a significant amount of food waste. Story 16. Being German. I might delete this later, but that's literally the first thing that came to my mind. Story 17. School bathrooms often face issues when one person decides to flush a bottle down the toilet, resulting in an immediate bathroom shutdown. This forces everyone to walk another block to find an alternative restroom. Story 18. Windows are opening on trains because some individuals cannot keep their arms, legs, or heads inside a moving carriage. The same applies to many hotel windows, as people have fallen out. Story 19. On Labor Day weekend in 2017, a group of teenagers took fireworks into the Columbia River Gorge, near Eagle Creek, to make a video for internet points. It was an especially dry year, and their fireworks ignited one of the most destructive fires the area has seen in recent memory. If you have ever seen the photo of the golfer who is golfing while the hillside burns, that is from the fire I am referring to. Thousands of acres of beautiful wilderness were destroyed. The interstate was shut down, homes and businesses were lost, and the town of Cascade Locks was under constant threat of destruction. It was a massive fire that devastated many beautiful areas of Oregon. At one point, it even crossed the Columbia River and started a fire in Washington. The river is not small, by the way. The teenager responsible was tried as a minor, but his name was never released because it would have endangered him. He was ordered to pay $36 million in damages and complete 1,920 hours of community service. The area is starting to recover, but the scars are deep, and many hillsides remain barren because of his actions. Story 20. Clown costumes used to be harmless, even silly. Then someone decided to dress up as a creepy clown and lurk in the woods, and now clowns are an instant red flag. Story 21. A convenience store chain in my city used to allow employees to take home the leftover concession food at the end of the day, as well as any food items set to expire in 3 days or less. This arrangement was great, until one employee was caught stealing milk and marking it as expired. He didn't just take a single jug of milk. He stole 4 4-liter jugs every few days for a couple of weeks. Needless to say, this employee's obsession with milk cost everyone else a lot of free food. Story 22. A man smuggled a bomb onto a plane and detonated it, blowing himself out of the side of the aircraft and plummeting 15,000 feet to his death. Fortunately, the plane landed safely with no other fatalities. As a result, we all have to remove our shoes to get through security. Story 23. Being able to open medication packages and prescriptions easily without a blowtorch or a jackhammer. Story 24. Every rule exists because one person could not use common sense. Now we have strict rules that are inflexible. Story 25. Gavrilo Princip's actions in Sarajevo in 1914 caused significant consequences for many people, and the repercussions of those actions are still felt in the world today. Story 26. Not necessarily ruined, but the 1982 Chicago area Tylenol poisonings are why every consumer product sold in the United States is heavily sealed against tampering. The crime has never been conclusively solved, although there are theories. Story 27. My divorce is a personal issue at work. My ex used to work part-time where I currently work. I told him not to tell anyone at work when he mentioned he wanted to separate and divorce, as I wanted to deal with it in my own time. However, he proceeded to inform his friend, who also works there, and she spread the news. Suddenly, I began receiving condolences and questions from my coworkers, which made me feel even worse. I hate when people feel sorry for me. When I asked my ex why he told his friend, he claimed he didn't, insisting she would never say anything. He became defensive when I confronted him, as I had learned from others that they heard it from his friend. Story 28. Our local Tesco had some recycling containers that I used often. However, people began dumping electrical goods and other items. It became quite untidy, so the containers were removed. Thank you to those who improperly disposed of their items in the containers. Story 29. I am a paralegal and I used to work at a firm with a mailroom technician, who we later learned was microdosing his way through the workday. He stapled through a CD I needed, and when I complained, he got fired. After that, it became the paralegal's responsibility to sort through the firm mail. Story 30. In my video production class, we have to be accompanied by the teacher when recording in the student parking lot. This is because a few years ago, some girls went there to record a video for an assignment but ended up sneaking in alcohol. They were caught because they recorded themselves doing it and posted it online. Story 31. The man with the bomb in his shoe 20 years ago has caused everyone to remove their shoes at airport security. It's so ridiculous. Story 32. In elementary school, we had a fun game where we would pick a person and chase them with highlighters. The goal of the game was to mark the person's arm with the highlighter. It may sound silly when I describe it, but it was enjoyable. One day, we decided to play the game and chose one kid to run. He started running, and we were all having a great time when another kid pushed him into a concrete wall and began scribbling on his arm, saying, "Got you? Got you." Unfortunately, this poor kid ended up bleeding on the ground because the other kid had caused a serious injury. He returned to school 2 weeks later, and as for the other kid, he was either suspended or expelled. I don't remember, but I never saw him again. We never had the chance to play the game again. Story 33. When I was in the Navy in Japan, we had a curfew because some reservists were visiting and decided to hire some sex workers. They chose not to pay them, which became a significant issue, so everyone stationed in Japan had to be on base or in their home by 10 p.m. Story 34. My son had his friends over, and they were playing Mario Kart. One of his friends was intentionally playing slowly, which disrupted the game for everyone else and caused a lot of shouting. I warned them that if there was any more screaming, I would turn the game off. Eventually, I turned off the game. Story 35. You know those big square yellow plastic step stools that are everywhere? Once ours had wheels, but someone sat on one and it slid out from under them. So everyone was told to immediately take the wheels off and carry the stools everywhere. Not drag, carry. Dragging would look unprofessional and may scuff the floors. Then someone missed their footing stepping down from one. Every single step stool had to be thrown out. The big yellow step stools were rated for about 250 kilograms. Enough for even the largest worker to stand on one with a full box of whatever to put on the shelves. They were all replaced by waist-high fold-out step ladders with an 80-kilogram rating. Let's be honest, the world is overweight, and so are most workers. So, everyone received weight exemptions for using the new steps, and nobody filled the upper shelves or put anything away that was more than shoulder height. Story 36. Two boys were smashing their marbles during a game at break time when one of them got a glass marble in his eye. No more marbles. While playing Conkers, one kid took it too far, just like with the marbles. I feel old. There were also fights about Pokemon cards. No more Pokemon cards. Story 37. I always remember when I was at a hotel once and they had a hot tub. The room had a sign on it that said, "Don't bring soap into the hot tub." Apparently, someone must have done it for them to put up a sign like that. Story 38. A customer could not find the gift message on their order, even though all orders included that information in a small booklet attached to the top of the bag. Instead of folding the perforated papers into booklets, it was necessary to fold them into a stack. This method felt unnatural and looked unappealing. I was frustrated that one customer's issue changed the entire folding process for such a trivial reason. Whether the booklet was lost during delivery or they found it difficult to open the attached booklet. Story 39. At my partner's workplace, everyone normally had to stay until closing. It was so slow that there was only one customer, and the team leader stayed until the end. The decision on who stayed and who didn't was made fairly. However, one girl didn't like this and expected to be allowed to leave early every night. When she didn't get her way, she went to the manager and complained. He then made it mandatory that everyone had to stay until the end of the night. She was let go a few weeks later for being a difficult colleague to work with. However, the policy requiring everyone to stay is still in place, and the store manager now checks clock-out times carefully. Story 40. The alligators at Busch Gardens, Tampa had a small fence to view them. Someone decided to post a video of themselves entering the exhibit. They then installed a larger, more obstructed fence. Story 41. When I was posted at Fort Sill, our command tested a casual Friday on a long weekend to try and improve low morale. It didn't last a few hours because one of the girls showed up to a formation in a sheer dress with no underwear on, as if she were acting inappropriately. It was lost immediately. Story 42. At my previous job, we had paid sick days. 2 employees used to take almost every Monday off due to illness like clockwork. So management revised the policy to unpaid sick days. They both surprisingly stopped being ill every Monday. Story 43. The whole Ariana Grande and Ethan Slater cheating on their respective partners after meeting on the set of Wicked is terrible. I do not agree with either of their actions. What makes it worse is that they also contributed to ruining Ethan's ex-wife and child's life, as she lost jobs due to their affair. She works as a psychologist, and that child will likely always be associated with it. Ariana then released an album with a few songs about the situation. The internet criticized her for a while, but she is slowly gaining back their favor. I have even seen videos where people express understanding of Ariana's attraction to Ethan and find him cute. Ironically, there are videos of her flat out ignoring him now. The situation negatively impacted everyone for several reasons. First, Wicked is now associated with infidelity. Second, Ariana has understandably lost fans, and those who supported her during that time likely faced some backlash. Third, marketing teams recognized an opportunity for promotion, which is why there were promotional posters everywhere. You could not escape it. Fourth, it affected the lives of 2 people who wanted nothing to do with it. Lily, Ethan's wife, stated that the worst moments for her after the affair were seeing all the promotional materials on television and other platforms. Do not get me started on those people singing in cinemas when it was not the sing-along version of the film. Story 44. Sleep token. There's a reason one specific fan was spat at. I know there is a group of fans that are negatively impacting the situation, but after everything that has happened over the last week, I blame one fan in particular. Story 45. Pokemon cards in my after-school program became a point of contention when a teacher instructed one child to return a card to another child who had it first. Instead of returning the card, he chose to rip it apart so that no one could have it. Story 46. I was at a birthday party where someone decided to bring their pet snake, thinking it would be fun to show off. Unfortunately, the snake got loose and caused a panic, ruining the party for everyone involved. Story 47. Someone brought inappropriate material to school when I was in the 8th grade, and as a result, there was no more manga allowed for anyone. Story 48. I remember as a child there was a diving board at every public pool. Now, you rarely find them, which I assume is due to some individuals injuring themselves on the side of the pool. Story 49. Being able to see is important. One person creates Funko Pops, making blindness seem more enviable. Story 50. A manager at my workplace long ago forced a worker to wear gloves while using a lathe, resulting in the loss of a finger. Now, we cannot use any form of shop tools in our lab, as we routinely need to fix machine parts and tap holes. Everything must go to computer numerical control, which costs thousands of dollars because some inexperienced manager has never seen a workshop tool in their life. Story 51. Someone decided to let their dog roam without a leash, and it attacked another dog. Now our homeowners association requires all dogs to wear a harness and a muzzle. Story 52. Work from home was revoked at my last job because one employee slept until 1 in the afternoon when he was supposed to be logged in at 8 a.m. Story 53. I had to stay in the psychiatric ward earlier in February due to a major depressive disorder episode that became very severe. It was freezing in there, and you are required to wear scrubs, grippy socks, and hospital-provided underwear. Apparently, they used to provide a fleece pullover to keep you warm, but they stopped because one of the doctors mistook a patient for an intern and walked out of the unit with them. The patient tried to flee, so they stopped providing the pullovers. While it is something very small, you would be surprised at how comforting something like that could be when you are in an unfamiliar, prison-like environment. Story 54. Personally, I was the foolish one. It was 8th grade, and for physical education, we were playing ball outside. A few friends and I were playing target, where you try to avoid a ball being kicked at you while staying close to a wall. I attempted a quarter turn while kneeling down, thinking it would look impressive. However, my legs didn't go down. I ended up getting hit in the head by a dodgeball. Although I never got a concussion, the school immediately forbade outdoor ball play for the rest of the year to prevent a similar incident and potential lawsuits. Story 55. I used to bring my dog to a small bar down the street. The bartenders all loved him, and customers enjoyed meeting him. Sometimes there were other dogs. When it was too crowded with people, we would take the dogs outside. It was fun. One night, it was quite packed. A man came in with a dog, and they asked him to go to the patio because there wasn't enough room for a dog inside. The man immediately became confrontational and suggested that some of the patrons should go outside so he could stay inside. I don't remember the entire story, but the owner decided it was easier to not allow dogs at all rather than deal with that man again. Story 56. Prescription medication is intended for individuals who genuinely need it. Unfortunately, multiple people have misused it, making benzodiazepines and opioid medications almost impossible to obtain. Story 57. How every picnic ended in pure chaos because one person thought bringing a blender was a clever way to enhance the experience. There is nothing quite like the stunned silence of a group seeing icy fruit chunks scattered across a blanket like remnants of a metaphysical battle. The perfect smoothie, just not the experience we expected. Story 58. For me, it was a significant experience. I still believe in the movement, but I have had situations where race was taken out of context and used inappropriately. One time, I was walking into a gas station when a man in a truck started catcalling me. He got out of the truck, followed me into the gas station, and began demanding that I accompany him, provide him with my number, and go out with him. He wouldn't leave me alone, and despite my repeated refusals, he tried to make it seem like I was denying him because of his race. He attempted to make me feel guilty for saying no when he was the one sexually harassing me. That was a defining moment for me. I can't even share this story with most of my peers because it would turn into a narrative about a white victim. I truly dislike the situation here. Story 59. When I was in a hostel, I had a roommate and we were good friends. One day, he got into an argument with a senior from the same college. First of all, he was small and skinny like me, but even skinnier, and he couldn't fight. He also had no support in the hostel. Instead of resolving the issue on the spot, he escalated it. In the end, the senior said, "I'll call my friends." And my friend replied, "Call anyone you want." That night, the senior called us. My friend was in another room and he said, "I'm coming with my friends." We tried to apologize on his behalf because we didn't want any fights, but the senior said, "I'm going back this time, and next time don't mess with me." We agreed and moved on. However, in the middle of the night, he came back, punched my friend, and left. We found out about it an hour later. After that incident, the hostel hired 3 more security personnel and upgraded everything. Our lives felt like we were living in a prison. Story 60. Oh, I don't know, maybe democracy? Maybe truth itself? Maybe the last flickering candlelight of hope we had as a species before the shrieking pustule of fascism, known as Donald John Trump, made his entrance with a grand flourish. The man's mind is a rotting fruitcake of media soundbites, and he still managed to convince 74 million people to line up and drink his metaphysical Kool-Aid like it was a superfood smoothie. He ruined reality, ruined language, ruined the word fake, ruined the idea of shame, ruined the phrase grab them, ruined the truth. Before Trump, we thought, hey, America has problems, but maybe we'll figure it out. After Trump? No, we are in the bad timeline now. Do you remember when a president looked at a global pandemic and said, inject bleach? When the leader of the free world suggested using nuclear weapons on a hurricane? When the man with the nuclear codes was tweeting about his conflicts with celebrities at 2 in the morning like a spurned teenage theater kid? The damage isn't just temporary. We're talking generational trauma. He turned every Thanksgiving dinner into a minefield of rage. Turned formerly decent neighbors into screeching goblins who now forward chain emails about conspiracy theories regarding George Soros. He destroyed nuance, rotted discourse, infected the Supreme Court, and desecrated the truth so thoroughly that words are no longer real. We watched him get impeached twice. We watched him incite a riot with a smirk and a selfie stick. We watched him try to pronounce Yosemite, and instead give us Yosemites and Yosemitism. He ruined comedy because reality itself is now parody. He ruined the American flag. He ruined hats. He ruined the idea of a businessman president. He ruined the meaning of the word, again. He is entropy in a suit. He is the greasy, semi-coherent end of all things. So yeah, what's something that got ruined for everyone by one person's stupidity? The 21st Century. By Donald F. Trump. Story 61. The United States Football League was undermined when Donald Trump decided to schedule it opposite the National Football League in the fall, instead of maintaining its original spring season. This decision effectively ended the league, which I enjoyed. Story 62. A co-op student once got a paper cut while making copies, and he had to wear gloves whenever handling paper after that day. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.